Hello everyone, today we want to take it a little easy and just quick fire you with some tips and tricks we've seen on the Korean solo queue ladder, specifically by players over 1000 LP. It can be great to learn super in-depth complex strategies and routes, but it can be equally nice to pick up some simple, easy to apply tips that the best of the best use. This way you can get a nice low stress injection of elo straight into your veins. First up, we want to talk about a very simple follow-up to your route that can catapult you ahead in XP, and that's counter-jungling the enemy Krugs or Gromp after you're clear when pathing to the opposite side of the map as the enemy jungler. You don't have to full clear your own jungle like in those images, it just makes the timing a bit easier, but this is easily solved by delaying with a couple of ganks or something, which level 3 clearers usually do anyway. This is a really strong strategy because it works whether your opponent took the camp in their first clear or not. If they did take it, it will respawn right around 4 minutes, so you can time your invade then and get a level 2 camp. But if they didn't, obviously it will be up anyway and you can take it then. This strategy is quite strong because Krugs and Gromp give the most XP out of any camps, and it is especially strong if you're starting at red buff and invading the Krugs since they give by far the most XP. And while we're here, one interesting fact about counter-jungling Krugs that you may not know is that if you leave the original medium Krug alive, then it will not despawn, and you can delay the camp's respawn timer. If you leave a small Krug or a medium Krug that spawned from killing the big one, they will despawn after a few seconds and the camp will then respawn normally from there. Some junglers like Warwick, Nunu, or Trundle can do this very easily since their abilities are largely single target, while some junglers like Fiddlesticks, Amumu, Zac, etc. would find this almost impossible. So it's not the most useful information ever, but it's something to be aware of as it can come in handy sometimes. Anyway, if you're playing a farming champion and start out with a full clear into Scuttle, then successfully steal the enemy Krugs, you can actually just recall then hit 6 off of your second clear, hitting your level 6 spike super early, which is what makes this strategy so potent. It perfectly gets you level 6. In this replay, we get to see Echo pull this off against the enemy jungler, a Sylas who is currently rank 5 on the Korean ladder with nearly 1400 LP. He starts out at red, clearing Krugs, Raptors, Wolves, and blue before heading to the Scuttle. Echo has a very slow first clear, so if you're worried about the Scuttle being contested, this is a fine adaptation, though obviously doing Gromp then Scuttle is more efficient. Since his clear was so slow with Echo taking Gromp after Scuttle, the enemy Raptors have actually respawned already, so he takes those as well as the Krugs after seeing Sylas ganking bottom. Now we don't want to ignore that he was initially going to recall rather than take Krugs. This was very likely due to the fact that his mid laner was in base and his top laner was shoved in, which is pretty unlucky and does definitely make a Krugs invade a bit risky if you don't know where the enemy jungler is. From our research, running into the enemy jungler here will be fairly rare, but just in case, you can kite the Krugs up and to the left, creating a wall of Krugs to block any skill shots. You might also want to save any mobility for a quick escape through the tri-brush as well. Anyway, despite the super slow Echo clear, he's still able to hit level 6 pre 7 minutes while rank 5 Sylas is still level 4. So again, not only does this strategy accelerate your XP, but obviously you're also denying the highest XP camp from the enemy jungler as well. Alright, for tip number 2, we've got something a bit lighter, and that's a trick Koreans use to warm up and improve their mechanics in general, URF and ARAM. This is the rank 4 account on the Korean ladder, and you can see that he started out his day with some ARAMs, then lost a tough game in which he performed well. We think he might have hopped back into one ARAM game as a mental reset or for a bit more warm up, before jumping back into solo queue with 3 straight wins. And here's the rank 8 account on the Korean ladder playing one ARAM before hopping into a solo queue session. The idea here is that you get a lot more mechanical practice and fight practice for your time when playing these different game modes, and obviously in a much lower pressure environment, which is great for the start of the day. Now URF is definitely better than ARAM for this, and when URF was up, pretty much every top Korean challenger account was spamming it to train their mechanics, and because, you know, it's fun. If you have the time, we really do recommend using ARAM or URF when it's available as a way to warm up before just hopping into ranked at the start of the day. Jumping into solo queue, feeding, then typing, warm-up game is a sure way to start your day on the wrong foot. Also, if you're super tilted from a game, these modes can be a nice way to try and mental reset. Or if you end up dodging, hopping into a second account to play a quick match can be a good use of time as well. Alright, next up for tip number 3, we have stopping camps instantly to respond to fights. This is a debacle that every jungler has faced. You see a fight breaking out. Do you finish the camp that you're on or abandon it to join your team? Well, when faced with this decision, Korean junglers leave the camp. Every time. In this game, we're looking at the rank 9 player on the Korean ladder sitting at about 1300 LP. As he's clearing out the raptors here, he sees that his Ashe is being ganked bottom and instantly leaves with just the big chicken up. But he doesn't even come close to saving Ashe, and Bar and Voli are both healthy, so he doesn't even come close to a return kill. Obviously he'll get a big wave, so it was still worth it, but this is just the Korean mentality beyond that. They simply stop camps and respond. Just moments later, as he's clearing out Krugs, he sees another fight breaking out in the bottom lane and instantly leaves before finishing the camp. And once again, this fight does not go well, ending up with the blue team losing 3 and only getting 1 back. Now, I understand that this may not seem like a convincing argument for this playstyle, but we wanted to show that these insane players, remember that this Graves is 1300 LP, commit to this playstyle even when it's not an obviously positive play. It's just how they play the game. And we genuinely believe this is something average players should adopt for a number of reasons. First, staying on camps is a really easy way to tilt your teammates and can have negative effects even if it was technically the right call. Beyond that, taking skirmishes and fighting is just a better way to learn and improve at the game by limit testing. What's going to help you more, an extended crazy skirmish or farming the camp? Finally, it's almost always really hard to actually look at a fight and tell if it's going to be a good one, especially for average players. So if you're not able to determine definitively if a fight is good or not, the better default option is to respond unless it's so insanely obvious that it isn't a good play. Now, the last thing I want to mention here is that your awareness will also be key to the success of this playstyle. If you aren't watching your minimap or lanes and end up moving 3 to 4 seconds later than you could have, a good fight could easily turn into a bad one. So responding immediately with high levels of awareness here is key. Alright, next up for tip number 4, we want to quickly talk about recovering from a bad early game. This is obviously a topic that could have its own video, but we want to just hit you with some quick tips. And for this, we're going to jump back into the same replay from before where the Echo got a 2-level lead over our 1400 LP Sylas, but this time from Sylas's POV to see how he recovers. Here at 9 minutes, Sylas is still level 5 to Echo's level 7. And we'll get to see our first tip from him here as he takes blue in a very safe way, kiting it back out of normal vision and towards safety, as well as dropping a control ward, allowing him to safely secure the buff. After that, we see him pulling wolves over nearer his tower as well. Obviously this puts him closer to raptors as well, so it's dual purpose. And you can do this with a lot of camps, like here on red, warding the brush and pulling back and up toward your base and tower. After a bad start, few things put the nail in the coffin like dying in your jungle, so taking every precaution is worth it. Next up, a great way to come back in the jungle is to just play safe, force nothing, farm, and wait for over-aggression or super easy opportunities. After clearing raptors here, Sylas's mid laner dies in a 1v1, which sucks, but he's able to clean it up. Just 30 seconds later, he once again sees an enemy solo laner playing very aggressively and responds, picking up another kill with the help of his mid laner. This is really going to be your best way to pick up kills or assists, just waiting and responding instead of forcing while behind. Our final tip for recovering from behind is to view waves as a lifeline. Catching or pushing waves when possible is truly your best chance of catching up. Whenever it's not trolling your team, pushing a wave like Sylas did after the Lucian kill, or catching a wave like Sylas did after the play top is going to be a huge influx of XP for you. We can see that after catching those waves top, then clearing out Krugs, he's already back tied in levels with Echo after being 2 levels down just 2 minutes ago. Obviously, it was somewhat lucky to have these opportunities, but incredible players like this Sylas don't miss them when they present themselves. Alright, for our 5th and final tip, we have something pretty niche, but we thought it was really interesting and wanted to share it. In this game, we join with Rek'Sai, who is currently rank 3 on the Korean solo queue ladder with over 1400 LP. He starts out by clearing out his red, Krugs, and raptors, hitting level 3 before heading for the top side and moving out into the river to look for a gank mid if it hadn't been warded. After briefly poking around at a gank in top lane, he just heads back to start up his blue, but uses the Scryer's Bloom to check Scuttle and sees Lee there, abandoning blue to contest. But we can obviously all see the big issues with contesting Scuttle here. Both his top and mid lane are completely shoved in. I'm sure we've all found ourselves in this frustrating situation, and it can feel like the only option is to try and smite steal the crab or just give it and return to your jungle. But this god of a player has a different idea, moving back to the blue and collapsing onto the rotating mid laner, picking up first blood in the process. Pretty cool, right? We've never really seen this idea of collapsing 2v1 onto the rotating laner while the enemy jungler is focused on Scuttle, as they surely will be. Now, obviously, as we mentioned, this is a bit of a niche strat, but we do think it's repeatable, especially with a duo in a nearby lane, and just something to consider and be aware of, as the payoff for a play like this can be big. And we don't think that you need to be Rek'Sai to pull off a move like this either. Any jungler could just hop over this thinner wall here and engage from there. Or obviously, if you're contesting from a red buff quadrant, you could just collapse in a more direct route as well. We think this will catch most mid laners off guard, as they're so accustomed to junglers just tunneling on the Scuttle and allowing them to rotate freely. Alright everyone, if you're serious about improving, then you should consider signing up to Skillcapped. We have the largest premium guide catalog on the internet, a direct pro coaching service, and much more. Also, if you've ever wondered how Challenger players carry bad teammates in your own elo, then you'll love our Smurf commentary page. We upload tons of these full commentated games every week, and the Challenger players answer all of your questions asked in the first 7 days of the video's release. And that does it for our 5 Korean Challenger tips to provide you with a quick elo injection. As you saw throughout the video, these are all strategies used by the best of the best on the most competitive server in the world. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.